Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org. Hi, this is Bill Kenower of Author Magazine, and today I'm in the Seattle home of children's book author and illustrator Nina Laden. Nina, welcome to Author.
Thanks. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so Nina, you're kind of unusual for the writers and artists I know in that you basically showed up on this planet ready to make pictures and tell stories, it seems like. Can you even remember a time when you weren't interested in that?
No, when I was about 2 years old, I started folding paper, and I would tell my mother what my story was, and she would write it because I couldn't write. And then I would illustrate it, and I just would tell her it was a book. So books were just something that were a huge part of my life. There was a brief period when I was in high school that I just wanted to be a ski instructor. And I went away from books for a while, and I just tried to ski all the time. And that was great, except I realized that it wasn't a full-time job.
But some people would say that about making books sometimes, that a lot of the times that what keeps people away and sends them into the law or medicine instead is that writing is too much of a risky proposition.
I also play guitar and write songs, and I had to make a decision when I was in high school whether I was going to go towards music or art. And I actually thought that art and writing was a safer career than music was. And somehow I always had faith that I was going to be able to support myself somehow, whether it was by doing graphic design in addition to illustrating and writing. And for a number of years, I also realized that speaking, whether I spoke in schools and I taught, that was another way to augment my income. And it just seemed to come to a point where I was making a living off of just doing books, and I didn't have to go back to that. But you know, ideas come when you're doing other things. So sometimes I find that by immersing yourself in something that you're not familiar with, then ideas flow better and stories come.
You know, the guy who created GoPro, those little, those HD athletic cameras that you can attach to your helmet or whatever.
Right.
He tells a story of the way he created that was something had just failed, but he went surfing because surfing's a passion, and he finds that ideas come to him when he's doing something he's interested in. Yeah. So he gets into an excited frame of mind, and then other ideas come. It sounds like you maybe operate similarly. You keep yourself interested in many ways.
Yeah, my shrink calls me a polymath. And I love to forage for mushrooms, and I love to take long walks on the beach and hunt for semi-precious stones, like the stone I'm wearing, which I found on the beach and then polished. And I get ideas while in these states of mind where I'm kind of doing something else. And I've written poems that have turned into books by this experience of walking on my beach, and then ideas will come to me. My book, Once Upon a Memory, started that way, and I have a current submission out right now that began actually in the very same spot that Once Upon a Memory began.
And so talk to me about the difference between that inspired moment where you're on a walk or you're doing the dishes or whatever, and this thing comes in and you're kind of hot on the trail and you get so much. And then what is the difference between that experience and then going back and working on it deliberately, saying, now I'm going to work on this? Because that's a different experience.
Yeah, no, that's very good of you to mention that. It's true. Here's an example. I have a book coming out from Paula Wiseman Books at Simon & Schuster next year. It's called If I Had a Little Dream. And the idea came to me while I was making blackberry jam, and I thought it was a song. And when my husband came into the house, I said, hey, I wrote this song, and here are some stanzas. And he said to me, that's not a song, that's a book. So from that point, I said, okay, it's a book. I went and started to put it in my journal, and then I typed it into a Word document. And at that point, I have to start truly thinking about it as if this is a picture book. How long does it need to be? The average picture book that I do is around 40 pages, which means 16 double-page spreads, and there needs to be an arc, and we need to have a direction with this. So, but I'm still very excited about it. I'm just now trying to think of it in terms of a world and a book, and where is the beginning, what's the middle, you know, or think of it in terms of a screenplay. What is my setup? What's the conflict, the resolution? And if it's a poem, it just has to have a general flow. So it is not quite the juicy moment, like the lust of when you get the idea. It is the maintenance of the long-term relationship.
You know, you tell a great story on your website about selling your first book. And it's a great story because it involves someone saying, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that with us?
Sure. My first book, The Night I Followed the Dog, was one of those rare books that was born whole. I just had this moment of inspiration. This was 1989. I was 27 years old. I sat down and I wrote it stream of consciousness in my journal.
Really?
I didn't even break for paragraphs. And I have a good friend who was also an artist, very smart guy, and I let him read it. And he told me that he didn't like that the boy and the dog talked to each other. He felt that I should have kept their worlds separate. So I was embarrassed to show it to anybody, and I put it in a drawer for 4 years. And then finally, I had dreamt that I would get published by the time I was 30. And I was 31, I wasn't published, and I thought, well, I should take a chance. And I picked 3 publishers because I had made 3 dummies. And then my best friend was on her honeymoon on a ferry in the middle of Lake Como, Italy. And she was tired of trying to speak Italian, and she saw an American woman on the ferry. And
no.
She said to the woman, what do you do? And this woman said, well, I'm a children's book literary agent. And this woman has probably heard this a million times, but maybe not, on a ferry on Lake Como. My friend Beth said to her, well, my friend wrote this really great book. You should read it. And the agent was very sweet and gave Beth her card and said, well, here, give her my card. And I decided I wasn't looking for an agent, but I would just mail my Night I Followed the Dog, the copy that came back from Harcourt, to the agent. And a week later, I got a phone call from the agent saying, I don't know if you remember, but your friend met me on a ferry. And I said, well, of course I remember. And she said, well, I have a friend. Can I show this to her? And I said, you can show it to anybody you'd like. And then she called me back about 10 days later and she said, well, will you agree that I'm your agent? And my friend was the editor of Chronicle Books Children's Division, and she's made you an offer. Jeez. What do you want to do about it? And my head was spinning, and I said, well, I sent it out on my own, and it's now still sitting at Houghton Mifflin and Little Brown. And she says, well, I'll call them. And long story short, Houghton Mifflin did make me an offer. But they wouldn't let me do my hand lettering, which was something that I had wanted to do. And really, truthfully, Chronicle Books was the right place, and I didn't know about them, but the agent got me to Chronicle, and I have been published by them now for 22 years.
Nina, I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
And what I'd like you to do is finish this sentence for me.
Okay.
If writing has taught me anything, it's taught me what?
If writing has taught me anything, it has taught me that my imagination is richer than gold.
Curiosity and imagination, boy, that's where the fire hits, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I believe in my imagination.
Yeah.
And that has sustained me through some really dark periods in my life. And I wanted at one point to do a graphic novel about my childhood that I thought I was going to call Words and Pictures Saved Me. Mm-hmm. That was a working title. But yeah, no, imagination is, I think, the single most important tool in my writer's quill, so to speak, or my writer's quiver. I think it's quiver.
Yeah.
In my writer's quiver, yeah. I can't live without my imagination. Oh, here's a cartoon, the National Gallery of Children's Art. It's all refrigerators.
That's a good New Yorker cartoon.
Oh, I know. I have a lot of things in here like that. No, maybe it's not in this one. Gosh, which number was it? Try like number 10.
How long does it take you to go through a book?
It's
journal.
like I did 3 in 1989.
Wow.
Some years are longer. This is the one. Okay, here it is.
That's the book. There it is.
Yeah, so here.
This is
October 16th, 1989, I started writing.
Wow.
And I kept writing.
Faulkner
and
style.
I kept writing. And then I even drew a picture of the dog.
Is that what the dog looked like in the book?
Yeah. He's wearing a tuxedo and he says, "That's okay, boys. He's with me." So this was the entire
Wow.
night I followed the dog. It just stream of
Wow.
consciousness. So it was in number 10.
Wow.